listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm so glad to have you here with us today. We have a special guest, Edwin Harkness Spina. Did I say your last name correctly?
Spina.
Okay.
But that's fine.
Welcome, Ed, and I'm so glad to have you. Let me tell you about Ed. He's a very interesting person. He's an award-winning author, healer, speaker, and mystic. He's the author of Mystic Warrior, which I read this weekend and loved, and Mystic Secrets Revealed, which I'll get to, and the developer of Higher Self Integration, created to clear, align, and center individuals moving through these tumultuous times. He specializes in removing curses and entities that often torment people while connecting them to their highest self, leading to greater intuition, clarity, and joy, which we all want. Before becoming a master healer, Ed went through an extreme metamorphosis. After graduating with a BSE degree in math and computer science from Tufts University, Ed began writing system software for a computer manufacturer. He went on to receive an MBA from the University of Chicago with concentrations in finance and marketing. After graduating, he worked with various venture capital firms and started several technology-based companies in the sports and music industries. Stressed out from his entrepreneurial ventures, I can only imagine, Ed rented a video from Blockbuster that promised to help him relax, and curiously, it helped him recall his past lives. To his surprise, the video changed his life as he remembered a past life in substantial detail. So then that took him to a 25-year study of mysticism, metaphysics, energy healing, and all things spiritual. The earnestness with which he desired to understand how the universe truly worked drew the attention of his first mentor. Through this relationship, Ed uncovered gifts his scientific mind would not have ever thought possible. After a few months, this primary means of communication with his mentor was telepathic. He lectures around the world and he offers energy healings in person and remotely. His company, Higher Dimension Publishing, publishes books, audios, and videos that heal, enlighten, and educate people all over the world. So welcome, Ed. It's so nice to have you today.
Hi, Julia. Thank you for inviting me.
I wondered if you could begin by explaining your definition of mysticism. In astrology, that would be the planet Neptune. It rules mysticism. But we also tend to think about it as enlightenment, the unseen world, and I think something that is maybe revealed to us as we do our spiritual work. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. I label mysticism as a spiritual discipline aimed at direct communion with God, or the ultimate reality. I mean, there's tons of people that have intellectual knowledge about different things and they study different subjects, which mystics do as well. But the primary goal is to have that experience, to commune with God, commune with your own highest self. And that's the goal of mysticism.
That's essentially awakening and evolution.
Right. The higher you get and you move up, even your higher self will move up to higher levels as you progress along the path. And so,
and I think,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, in the last 5 years, since I've started healing people directly in private sessions, my abilities have increased because the higher beings that are watching me recognize I'm helping other people, so they help me. So my abilities have gotten better over time.
And I always say with that, one of the benefits is that you feel light or you feel information that you would never feel for yourself. And that makes you evolve and become a larger person because you recognize streams of consciousness that wouldn't necessarily come for you, but they come through you to help another person.
Right. And my sensitivity to things have also increased. I was never in a different class. I wouldn't necessarily, at least initially, I wasn't the best student in the class. I was kind of in the middle. But as I got more and more practice, then my sensitivity increased, and things that initially were difficult became very easy. So it's more of the same. The more you practice, the better you get at anything.
And I think that that's a mark of a good teacher and a good spiritual teacher, that the things that take so long in the beginning for us to learn, at some point we can convey them to others in just a few words. You know, like that's
Right.
a awakening transformational state.
Yeah, that's what I like to say is that the essence of being brilliant is to make the complex understandable to the average person. I
Right.
mean, people say, oh, he's so smart. You can't even understand him. That's not the smart guy.
No.
The smart guy can make sure you can be understood. So that's what I strive for.
One of the things that I was struck by, and I think it's at the end of your book, and I think this is a big thing that's going on in world consciousness right now. There's some deeper subjects I want to get into, but I wanted to do this in the beginning. We can either become a mystical warrior or a victim. And I know that that's true, but I'd love to hear your understanding of it for our listeners.
No, absolutely. Victim mentality is promoted everywhere. Media, politicians, teachers. You're a victim because of your race, your gender, your sexual preference. All they make a million different excuses for why you're never successful. And that's just the opposite of a mystic warrior and someone who's successful in their life. The most important thing is taking responsibility for your situation and doing things to make your life better. And that's what I strive. I don't, even when I talk with people, I don't give them every single answer. They say, well, what's my life purpose? What should I be doing? I said, that's not my job. My job is to hook you up with your own highest self so you can figure that out and
Right.
empower the person. So that's my thing. It's the opposite of victim mentality. And you know, occasionally I have to say there are people that are victims and it's not necessarily their fault. Most of this time is when they're cursed or they have these non-physical entities tormenting them. And so in those cases, yes, you're right. You've been a victim. You haven't been able to exercise your free will and to empower yourself. But when I get rid of the curses and that, then their life changes, you know, dramatically. So that's one of the most fun things and most fulfilling things that I can do to someone is remove those kind of curses and entities.
And I think that's a interesting talent that you have, because I think most of us at some time we can tell when other people are connected to us, but we don't necessarily know how to get rid of curses and entities, which are different from personal karma. You know, I think
Right.
of personal karma is sort of like events that repeat because we think they're real, but entities and curses are something else completely different, I believe.
Right. Now, in the past, I was afflicted. I was cursed, and I couldn't understand why my luck was so bad. I attributed it to luck. But I never gave up. I kept fighting and fighting and fighting. But at one point, 45 different projects didn't come to fruition. Some were
Wow.
tiny ones, some were longer ones, and I couldn't figure out what am I doing wrong, because I was educated, hardworking, motivated, and I did everything that you're supposed
Intelligent.
to do. Yeah, intelligent. I had all the right background to do these to be successful, and I couldn't understand it. And that's when I met my mentor, who I called Sophie. And basically, she didn't tell me explicitly, but I was cursed. And when she
Hmm.
took that away, everything was easy, or thousands of times easier.
Yeah.
So that's why I know exactly what that's like when you are cursed. And so when people come to me and they have a problem, I check always every session. Are you cursed? Or are there non-physical entities bugging you? And if there are, I get rid of them. And that's like the most fulfilling thing is to give someone the freedom to be themselves. So that's I take special pleasure in doing that.
And I do want to point out, because I've actually worked with you, he does it and he does it very quickly. it's an important thing to know. If you're a person who's working on awakening, you're working on your karma, you're successful with it some of the time, but things just aren't working out. This is something that you should consider. And we're not talking about you're going to be cursed for all of eternity. We're just talking about something stuck to you that you want to get rid of, basically.
Right. Now, curses and there again, like you said, there's no guarantee that you'll be curse free for the rest of the time, but I take every precaution possible to make sure that it never comes back. Because
Right.
besides getting rid of the curse, you have to get rid of the evil magicians responsible for the curse. So I tie them up, take away their power so they can't harm you again. But then I go after their entire network to shut them down so they can't call their friends or associates to also come and bug you. So
Right.
there's no guarantee that if someone's extremely vindictive, say they're both in the physical world, that says, "Oh, I hate this Julia woman. I'm going to go after her," and then they run into someone the next week who's an evil magician, and they try to get you to curse you again. There's no guarantee that doesn't happen, but all the common usual suspects that they would go to or have been eliminated. So I
Right.
try to do everything possible so that the person doesn't have to keep coming back to me, but they're self-empowered and then can go on to live a great, fulfilling life.
Well, one of the interesting things about Sophie, who's a character in your book, is that so much of the engagement is transmission, spiritual transmission. Now, I had the same thing. My teachers were actually wolves, but I could hear and see what they were thinking. And like
Right.
sometimes when I was emotionally overwhelmed, I could hear them say, "You won't feel this way tomorrow," or "This will pass," or "Go for a walk." And the
Right.
thing that made me really believe them in the beginning is that I really wanted an herb garden, and I was staying at home with my kids, didn't have much money. And I thought, I don't have the money for seeds. And they said, "Next week, your grandmother will send you a check for $100. And I thought, right, sure. Well, she did.
Right.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah. The proof is in the pudding. If what someone predicts for you comes true, then you have to give them a lot more credibility. And okay, I'm going to listen even more carefully.
right.
And
So
that's
where,
what my Sophie did the same thing. She would she had me calling her almost once a day. And at one point, then one day I call her up and she says, "How was your meeting?" It's like I never even mentioned I was going to have a meeting. I said, "Oh, it went pretty well." She goes, "Who's the guy that sits in the back?" I said, "Oh, David, is that who you're referring? Oh yeah, the guy he mumbles. Yeah, that's him." She goes, "Don't trust him. He's going to try to screw you." And it's like she didn't even know I had a meeting, but she was in the meeting with me, watching it remotely, and
right.
told me who it was. And then she'd say, "What about the guy with the little ears?" And that's kind of a weird thing. It's like you don't really
Yeah,
notice someone's ears. I said,
no.
"Oh, that must be Mark." She goes, "Rely on him. He's going to help you. He's going to invest in your company." So that's the kind of insight that I was getting from her, even when not like I didn't ask for it. I wanted as much help as I could get,
Right.
but that's what's possible when you're at that level of you know, closing in on being an ascended master.
Well, and I wanted to talk about it because to me, this is like one more reason that people might want to move into awakening is that, when you're really in need and you're working as a teacher, you can feel when people are. And most of us will send energy to them. But at some point, these people will start to get transmissions of their own if they continue with the work.
Right. Yeah, that's what she did with me. She hooked me up with some higher beings so that I didn't have to go to her all the time. And at one point, I kind of suspected this was going to happen at some point. She basically kicked me out of the nest and I couldn't contact her anymore. I couldn't call her on the phone. And even worse, I couldn't even meditate and connect with her telepathically anymore because I got to the point where, okay, it's time to do it on your own. And
Right. And
that was a valuable lesson I learned is like, don't rely on anyone for your spiritual well-being or anything. You have to be able to be self-empowered. And so for 20 years, she was out of my life. I had to do everything on my own. And then when I didn't need her, then she popped back in again. It's and why? Because I didn't need her. So from time to time, I will tune into her and ask her opinion on things, which is
right.
fine. But for the most part, I don't need her, which is a tribute to her teaching.
And that's something else we're telling you that's true is at some point your teacher won't be available. So study while you have one and do
Right.
whatever you can do. Um, there's a lot about remote viewing that you've been talking about. Is this something you do a lot? Is this something that you think everyone can do. I do it a different way, remote viewing. So I
Right.
was just curious about it.
Yeah. Well, like as you probably know, and your followers would soon come to learn, is every one of your senses has an inner component to it. Remote viewing is a specific protocol that's related to clairvoyance. Same thing, but you can have clairaudience, clairsentience, everyone, even smell. I mean, she would have me call her at one point. I remember from in the middle of a shopping mall. This was before cell phones. I'm calling her on a payphone, and I just when I'm talking to her, I can smell. She says, "Yeah, I'm cooking up some herbs for you." I said, "Like I can smell them. Like how can you smell them over the phone?" But I could smell them. She says, "Yes." Like she was pleased that I could smell what's that cooking.
Right.
Anyways, in my personal case, I'm best at feeling things,
Hmm.
clairsentience. So I can tune into someone, a client who's calling for help, and I can feel whatever they're going through. So I know if they're sad, angry, happy, carefree, whatever it is, and I do their whole family typically, and especially if they have entities. If the entities are on the person, if there are any, they sense me and they get very upset with that. They hate my energy. You know, I'm evil to them, which is good. And I feel
Yeah.
them yelling and screaming, and that's when I know to get rid of them for the person.
It is palpable. I don't think I remote view like other people, but if I think really hard about someone and I think about their inner self and wanting to help them, I can like see through them what they're seeing in the room, what they're experiencing, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah,
And
it's another gift you can develop. And because I'm good in the clairsentience, I've used that and I can handle most everything just using that sense. But occasionally I get visions and I'll pass them on. If I get them, I said, I don't know what this is relevant, but like one guy, I was helping him right when I was first starting. And I just saw this vision of like the old West where he was sleeping and was awakened and someone shot him.
right.
And I told him, I said, I don't know what this means. He goes, oh, that explains everything. What? And I said, because I have this aversion to gambling. I know I should never gamble. And yeah, I think I gave him a little more information that had something to do with gambling. So he won a bunch of money in some poker game in the Old West. And then the guy came to steal the money from him again and shot him. So you say, so he basically was very helpful to him to know that was the reason why he had such an aversion to gambling in any type. So
Yeah,
when I get those visions, I pass them on.
I think that's really interesting because I think those only come up when someone is ready to clear that energy. Because you can talk to someone or talk to friends for a long time, and then all of a sudden, as they're getting better, you're getting better, all this information will surface.
Right. Yeah. Well, kind of when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mhm.
And then the other job of the teacher is to give the student as much as they can handle and then a tiny bit more to make them stretch. But you can't overwhelm them with everything because you do that, then their eyes glaze over and they don't hear anything you're saying.
No,
So
they
that was
can't
a lesson I
remember
had
it.
to learn, yeah, early on as well. At one point, I woke up, I thought everyone was telepathic. It's like, sounds crazy, but that was what I thought this one day. And he was an investor in my company. He came down and said, oh, our lunch has been postponed. I said, oh, I know. He's like, what do you mean, Well, you told me last night. I said, what do you mean? I was out with my friends. They said, yeah, you were out with your friends at some restaurant bar. And I remember you were sitting at the bar and they were dancing.
Mhm.
And he's like, how do you know this? I said, I don't know. I thought you knew it. And it's like, well, he was all right. Next time, can we just like rely on telephones and things like that? That's a little more reliable. I said, oh, okay. And that was when I realized, wait, everyone, I thought we hit the shift or something like that, and everyone was telepathic.
Well, I
But
think we're
not quite there yet.
going into that. I think there's
Right.
a chance that we'll go into that.
Yes, we're just not quite there yet when I thought we were there.
Yeah, nice
So that
dream.
was right. That was a funny incident.
One of the things that was remarkable to me when I was looking at your website, you were saying that what everyone should do is to work on higher consciousness. And for people who can say, well, I can feel love and light, why might they want to work on higher consciousness? I know, but I'd love to hear your description.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing that's important in your life is connecting with your higher self and bringing the love and wisdom, that love and light you talk about, bringing it down to earth and sharing it with the world. So the higher you can stretch, the more practice you undertake, the higher you'll go, the greater the power of what you're bringing down to earth will be. And the other thing I notice is that, like in all these spiritual battles, I have lots of those, with the entities, evil magicians, things like that. Whoever goes to the higher level always wins these battles. It's in like almost like a dream-like consensual reality. And whoever goes, I mean, the bad guy, or could be an ET, is trying to rip my head off for that. But if I have higher vibration, he can't do that, and I can pick him up and throw him across the room, like in the Matrix. This is a real world, and so that's the thing. But the point is, if you're striving for higher and higher consciousness, your power increases exponentially. Every time you go up a layer, you're 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000. You're more and more powerful, and the people that you're influencing are also at that same level. So you're having an even more exponential effect on the world. So that's just another reason to keep striving to raise your vibration and to embrace more and more higher consciousness.
I think too, it's at least 15 years ago, maybe more. I had a teacher, and he was telling me, you need to expand more, you need to evolve more, you need to create more. And I said, why? My life is just great right now. I'm doing
Right.
well money-wise and with my work. And he said, because even the most spiritual beings in this universe or this galaxy continue to evolve. And he said, that's what you came here to do, was to
Right.
continually evolve to higher levels. And he said, it's not going to go away when you die. And he said, you're evolved enough to know you might as well start now.
Right. There's nothing more important. I call it your soul purpose, with the double entendre, soul, SOLE, and also SOUL, purpose in life, is to
Right.
tune into that. And that's how you become the ascended master. That's what we should all be striving for, to be ascended masters like Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Saint Germain, Buddha, all these great teachers and avatars who've come to earth to teach us how to use that higher consciousness and help the world.
And I think to move into it so fully that we begin to see what's invisible. You were talking about witches and wizards and magicians, and they're also angels, and they're also beings of light. And I really
Right.
didn't expect to see or become conscious of all those things when I first started my work. But it's the truth. Those things
Right.
are there.
Yeah. You sound like you're more visually oriented than me. I'm more feeling oriented, but it doesn't matter what path you go to get to that higher level. And again, even my other abilities are fleshing out more. I become more clairaudient. I can hear people saying things. When I tune into people and I talk about, oh, your sister, she's very angry, and she keeps complaining about, oh yeah, that's my sister. All right, you got her. You know exactly. Do you feel any better? Not, to be honest, not really. And I see, oh yeah, that's her, skeptical down to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can feel and almost hear what they're saying to me when I work on them. So yeah, and you'll get better as you practice.
I do think you feel and hear whatever it
Right.
is. We all have different abilities, and I think they all become stronger
Right.
as we do more
Now,
work.
now, I would say it's not a drawback, but when I was starting and I could feel things, like I would go to a spiritual fair or that, and I'd walk down the aisle and I would feel totally overwhelmed with all the negativity in that. And I'm thinking, why? This is a spiritual fair. I'm supposed to be feeling uplifted. And I would duck behind a curtain or that, and it was much longer processed in order to clear myself. And then I walk down the next aisle and the same thing would happen. And then it occurred to me that I was acting almost like a magnet, because I was a little bit brighter than the average person there. But why are these people there? They're there because they have problems and they're looking for solutions. And the
Exactly.
best solution is unloaded on me.
Yeah.
And so that's a point that people go through. But then you reach this inflection point where your energy becomes high enough that you're instead of just automatically magnetizing and pulling things toward you, you're past that point and you're the one radiating out energy to anyone. So you just walk by someone and at the same spiritual fair, only they feel better because you flushed the negativity, the anger, the sadness out of them just from walking by them. So that's a point where you can get to that. There was another funny thing is I used to love microbrewed beer. I used to brew beer and that. And one of my favorite things would be on a Friday afternoon to go to the local microbrewery and try out whatever the new beers were there. But I couldn't go because what's everyone else doing there on a Friday afternoon after a hard day at the office or working? They're there to unload. And so here I am, the magnet that's taking on all their stuff. So there was a point as my energy was increasing that I had to take a few months off until I got to that inflection point, and then I was able to go and enjoy myself again. So yeah, that's the more sensitive you are, you'll recognize these periods in your life where this happens.
I still go through them. Sometimes when I'm really growing, it's like it becomes unbearable to go anywhere. I do it, but
Right.
it's hard, or I'll come home and need to take a nap. And then I'll notice a few months later, I'm like, this is fun. I wonder why it bothered me so much. But of course I know.
Right. Well, in that same light, at one point, one of my companies, I was traveling around like every other weekend. I'd go to a different city to as a vendor, and so we'd stay in inexpensive places where they have the breakfast, continental breakfast in the morning, and I go down there and we have to save money where I'm eating the continental breakfast, but invariably there's some big screen TV blaring nonsense, and it was so offensive to me. So I had a technique where I would look around, make sure no one was watching me, go up to the TV and slowly reduce the volume until you couldn't hear it. Then I would turn the TV off. And if I did it slowly, usually people didn't notice and I could have peace because I couldn't take the blare of that nonsense. But every once in a while, someone would, especially a worker, wait a second, who turned off the TV? Where's, and then they go and turn it back on again. But yeah, what kind of the more, or at least there's a phase where you just do not want to have all this noise, clutter, and that you want to be silent. So those are the times I love to go into nature.
Yeah.
Be by myself. Yeah.
It can be overwhelming. And I'm going to say about television, mainstream media, it is a wave. It's a specific wave that can really upset your consciousness, I think.
Right. That's the best line is there's a reason they call it programming.
Right.
So that's the first thing I say. You want to improve your life? Stop watching TV. It's that simple. It's anything.
I read it.
Stop reading the news.
Yeah, I read it once a week, but that's about as far as it goes, which is fine.
Right. Yeah. That's the fastest path. Stop putting mental poison into your being, and you'll be better off. There's less to detox from later on.
Well, one of the things that you wrote about on your homepage that I like is you were saying, don't suppress emotion, notice it, observe it, but don't get stuck in it. Go beyond it.
Right. Yeah. We live on all these different levels, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if you're just focusing totally on your emotions, you're not going to go up to those higher levels, which is again, beyond thinking, beyond the conscious mind, where you're communing with ultimately God, with the true reality. So that's what I try to steer people to try doing that.
And I try to tell myself, even though I'm an emotional person, I keep getting better and better at it, that emotions are just like waves. You go up and down. And just because I feel this way now doesn't mean I'll feel that way tomorrow or in 2 days. And if you can think that, it helps you to observe it and get some distance from it.
Right. Yeah. Well, now with my techniques, I can just take away the negative emotions with people that call in. I say, I can feel your anger. Let me just take that away. And I fill them with energy while talking to them so their mind is occupied with what I'm doing and they can feel it, and then I just take it away. And especially with their parents, siblings, whoever, spouses, whoever it is, as I do that, she's really angry. Let me take that away. And she's like, she doesn't know what to do with herself because she's not angry anymore. I said, well, you don't need to be angry. In fact, if you're not angry, you're going to think more clearly and everything's going to be better in your life. If you keep focusing on the things that make you angry, then for sure you're going to have the universe say, she needs more things to make her angry. Let's do that for her. So, and then I tell them, okay, so tell your mother this is how you should do it, or tell your spouse this is what they should be doing. And So it
I
helps
think
them out in that way too.
I think it is such an important point that our earthy self, or the self that we are right now, is experiences things that the higher self doesn't. And sometimes if we can wait and observe or send a light to ourselves or get in a better place, those things transform or transmute.
Right. I mean, ideally, you're looking at everything from the perspective of the higher self, and okay, this too shall pass, and you don't get bogged down in whatever temporary emotion you may be feeling.
Right. So we are coming up to our break. I'm Julia Griffin at One True Self. I'm here with Edwin Spina about moving into higher vibrations and exploring the mystical world. You can find Ed at mysticwarrior.us. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin at One True Self, ONE, trueself.com. And I'm talking with Edwin Spina and about the mystical world, about what's going on in the invisible world, the things that we experience, and the importance of the higher self and the evolution of higher consciousness. And he will share more insights with us in the next few minutes. You can find him at mysticwarrior.us if you'd like to learn more about him and his work. And now Ed is going to take us into a healing session.
Okay, anyone who's listening to this podcast, even though it's not live, you can still get the benefit of this energy. So I'm going to ask everyone, just breathe at your own natural rhythm. With every inhale, take in the abundance and love that's prevalent in the universe. And with every exhale, just blow away any negativity. And I'm going to augment that too. I also have a group of spiritual healers, the higher beings, high vibration beings that will help us in this, speed things up. So I'm going to ask them also to clear everyone's emotional body of any anger, stress, sadness. So just let that go. Keep your normal breathing, and you'll feel the negative emotions, the lower emotions that are weighing you down disappear. We're also going to clear your mental body, especially people who've had a lot of trauma in their lives. It's natural to think that the universe is not safe, or that you can't trust people, things like that. But it doesn't matter, even if these ideas that you've formulated are based on your real life experiences. If they're not helpful, we're getting rid of those too. So I'm going to ask my team to help get rid of any negative thinking, any limiting beliefs, and especially any doubt that you're entitled to have a beautiful, spiritually fulfilling life full of love, joy, happiness, and abundance. So I know I'll ask my team also, if there's any non-physical entities bugging anyone, let's get rid of those also at this moment. I'm not tuning in with the people in the future yet who might be listening, but there may be some that have that. So we'll get rid of that. And now I've been recently working with 8 ascended masters. And one that everyone loves is Lakshmi. She's the goddess of abundance. So I'm going to call her in. She loves to help. So I'm going to ask everyone who's listening to this to feel the energy of Lakshmi. Lakshmi, please infuse your energy into everyone listening to this podcast. And you may feel she's tweaking things around, because her specialty is helping people to find a career or calling that's spiritually fulfilling as well as financially rewarding. So people that are working in jobs that only to make a paycheck, in that you may feel a little, not really discomfort, but the reminder that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing here on earth, that this is a temporary position, and you don't have to torment yourself by doing something that you know is not of benefit to other people, and that it may be just to get a paycheck. So I'm going to let Lakshmi infuse her energy into you. And even if you're doing the right thing, she may help you find new ways to get clients, new ways to market your services, even new offerings you may be able to offer to people. That's her teaching. And it also comes from, which she also teaches, that it doesn't matter where you come from, whatever humble beginnings you may have or not, it doesn't matter. Just like the lotus leaf is one of her signature. She usually appears on a lotus leaf. because the lotus can grow even in the muddy, dirtiest water, and it still is a beautiful flower. So the same thing, you can become that beautiful flower as well. It doesn't matter your humble beginnings or wherever they might be. You can always improve. And again, find your true calling. And that true calling is right in line with what your higher self is helping you to connect with. When you find that true calling, then instead of having to push to try to do something, you find yourself being pulled automatically to do more of what you're good at and that you're helping other people. So that's the teaching. If you do something that you love to do, that's spiritually fulfilling and that helps other people, then you'll be rewarded for it. So, all right, so with Lakshmi's energy, I'm going to just take everyone to a higher place as well. It's higher, higher, higher. As all the emotional and mental baggage is gone, the spiritual entities are gone, and you have the infusion of Lakshmi's energy to help you. So take a moment to bask in this energy. And even though I can't feel them on the call in the immediate present, I can feel the heart energy opening up from people who will be listening to the call in the future. So, okay, well, that will give everyone a taste for the kind of work that I do. And as
wonderful.
you mentioned, it's very fast.
Thank
We
you.
don't have to sit around waiting for grass to grow. We just do it immediately.
That's what I've been saying lately. I want manifestation to be quantum.
Right. And that's another reason. The higher you are, the more power you have, the closer you are to pure source energy, the faster you can manifest things.
Yeah.
So it's just another reason to keep raising your vibration and striving for higher and higher consciousness.
I did think about something you were saying during your healing session just then, and that was that you said if you keep listening to your higher self, you'll find the right thing. So when I was really going through that, I had to date published one article, and I saw a spiritual magazine online, and it said they were hiring writers. And she said, do you have any articles you can send to me? So anyway, I sent it to her, and she said, you're hired. We need you to write 3 or 4 articles a month. And it was good pay. I was like, wow. It was almost what I was making at my regular 8-hour job. So then after a year or 2 of doing that, because it was a spiritual magazine, people started wanting readings. And so it actually created my business.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I come across a lot of writers and people that I want to write this book and I don't know where to start. And I give them simple advice, which I heard from other people who are not necessarily spiritual, but it applies to everyone. And that is when you get the idea of what to write about, just write as fast as you can without thinking about it, without editing, as fast as you can. Just get it out every last bit. If it's a scene in your novel, if it's an article that you want to write about something that's spiritual, whatever it is, just write it as fast as you can. Then later, go back and edit it. And also, you don't have to write things in order. Like my novel, Mystic Warrior, I didn't write that in the order that it happened, even though it happened and it's written in a chronological order. Some scenes I saw in advance, I wrote them, then I went back and wrote things before, and then I'd say, wait a second, I have to get from A to B. I need something in between. So then I would write the scene in between. Then I say, wait, this has to come before this, but it can come after that. So let's move the whole thing over. And so that's what I did. I was laying on my bed with highlights of the scenes, and I was shuffling the papers, putting them in the right order later. So that's another trick. Just write whatever comes to mind, because while it's fresh in your mind, do that. And if you do that, then writing is much easier.
Oh, we do want people to know, though, that if you keep going to that higher consciousness, different events will start to pop in and things will change.
Right. Yeah, that would happen to me too. I said, oh, I need a scene here between here and here. And I would go and meditate, and then bam, there's the scene. Then I'd go out and do the same thing, write it as fast as I could to fill in the gap there.
Right. But the universe does that for us once we get on that path to higher consciousness. It writes in the scene.
Yeah, that's what I say. Creativity and inspiration, that's your job. Tune into your higher self, ultimately God, whatever name you give to this higher power. And that well, the information will pour through. So you don't have to worry that, wait, I'm not necessarily a good writer or a good sculptor or painter. Well, it turns out God is very good at these things. So if you just get out of the way, then that wisdom and joy will come through, and you'll create your own artwork.
That's a wonderful thing to share. One thing I think I should point out is people should know there is some work involved in becoming more mystical.
Right. I mean, you can study the ancient teachings. I mean, one of my favorite authors was a fellow named William Walker Atkinson, who wrote under a bunch of different pseudonyms. He had his own publishing company, and so in order to make it look like he had more authors working for him, he wrote books under different names, like Yogi Ramacharaka, Swami Panchadisi, and he had an affinity for the Indian Vedic teachings, which are also universally true. It doesn't matter what religion. Right. And he wrote. In fact, this is what got me connected with the Ascended Masters. I was rereading one of his books called Mystic Christianity, which tells the story of Jesus from a mystic perspective. And the book was written in 1908. So it's not some newfangled ideas. Mm-hmm. It's ancient wisdom. And I was reading it for the third time, and I closed it right after the scene where Jesus healed Lazarus, returned him from the dead. And so I just closed the book and was meditating, and then Jesus showed up, which he would do from time to time. And he's like, okay, what's up? And I said, well, I decided I would rather heal people, raise people from the dead than just kill demons. And so he's laughing because that's what I was known for, getting rid of demons and entities and curses. And so he's laughing. He goes, well, what do you want? And I'm thinking, I said, what I want is I want to wake people up, not just spiritually, but also what's going on in the physical world. That the pharmaceutical companies, the banks, the Hollywood, the media, the politicians, they're all lying to people, and that they should be able to have discernment to see through these lies so that they don't get sucked in and do things that are contrary to their well-being. And so he's just listening, and next thing I know, I'm surrounded by all these beings. And I didn't know who they were at first. I just knew that it was a whole group of them. And he's like, say it again. And I said it again. And then they just slowly faded away. And then that was in January of last year. And then I came up with a package, later in that spring, and I realized, wait, I have to get back to my mystic roots and connecting with your higher self and getting help working with these Ascended Masters. And so that's what spawned it. And I was picking the different masters to work with, and I came up with 8 of them. And then I was thinking, okay, let me just like put the novel. How do you put them in? Which order do you put them in? So I was putting them in, and I was kind of mixing male, female, east, west, mixing around. And then I had the order. And then after I had the order, I realized that in my series, I had an introduction was number 1. But then after that, 2 was Buddha, 3 was Mary Magdalene, 4 Lao Tzu, 5 Archangel Michael, 6 Kuan Yin, 7 Saint Germain, 8 Lakshmi, 9 Jesus. And I looked, and from a numerology standpoint, I realized that each of these numbers matched the Ascended Master, like Buddha, the middle path, diplomacy, tact. Mary Magdalene, empowerment, number 3. Lao Tzu, 4, the balance between work and play, yin yang. 5, Archangel Michael, freedom, cutting cords from people and situations that are not helpful. 6, family, Kuan Yin. 7, Saint Germain, who the holder of the 7th ray and alchemy, scientific and spiritual technologies. 8 is abundance, and there's Lakshmi. And 9, completion, Jesus. So again, the universe and the masters had all helped me to put everything in the right order to bring their work through, so I could help even more people, with their divine guidance.
Right. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I heard that on a recording that you sent to me to listen to. And I was like, I don't know how I could introduce a question to that,
Right.
But you told
us.
That's
the same thing. My friend Raina, she's an intuitive composer, and she does the music for all my meditations. I called her up and said, Raina, I got a new project for you. And I was telling her about it, and she's getting all excited. She's extremely sensitive and hears things, obviously, as a composer. She says, wait a second, hold on, I have to get a piece of paper. They're coming and telling me which key they want each of their music in. Like he wants it in B flat, they want it in C sharp, and I don't know which note is from another, but she knew. She's writing like, I can't forget this. I need to write this down. And then she's like, here's Mary Magdalene telling me what to do. And here comes Archangel Michael. They just communicated through her the language of music to match the energy that I had. She knew just from that conversation with their help, what kind of to compose. So so that is, once again, I'm getting help, and in her this case, she was getting help as well from these ascended masters to in turn help other people.
I think that's part of what's coming, is more help for people who are aligned in a way.
Right. Yeah, they want people to wake up. They want people to be self-empowered, and we're in there. In some ways, I see the world as bifurcating to two different paths: a path of ascension, empowerment, freedom, love, and the path of control, negativity, divisiveness. And it's like crystal clear to me, but some people don't see it. Those people are probably in most cases still watching mainstream media, and that's, stop doing that. It's
I do see it,
advice.
and I mean, to me, it looks more and more polarized.
Right, exactly. So, choose which path you want to be on. Your higher self wants to be on the path of freedom, empowerment, sovereignty. That's the way we're going. And that's the trend that's happening in the world, even if you don't notice it. Those prior supranational organizations are crumbling. The sovereignty is getting pushed down. First, it'll be to countries, then states, then eventually individuals. Every individual is a sovereign being, and you don't need to be part of some huge, whether it's the Soviet Union, the European Union, NATO, all those organizations are crumbling, and the sovereignty is going to be pushed down as close to the individual as possible.
And I think, people always say, so are we going to split off? Are we going to live in a good world and they're going to live in a bad world? And I'm like, I just don't have time for that. I'd rather just work on myself.
Right. Just make sure whatever happens, you're in the right world.
Yeah.
You're in the highest world for your thing. And in the Bible, they say, look right, look left. One of those people is going to be gone. I think those are the people that are picked the right world. They're going to ascend to a higher world without all this dreary negativity. There'll still be a tiny bit of that, even in the higher worlds, 5D worlds and above. But that's almost a spark to get you to keep upping your game to become more and more spiritual, more and more divine.
And I do think as you go more deeply into spirituality, it almost becomes two different worlds. Like if you're not connected and you go into the physical world, you're like, oh, this is awful. But if you're connected and you go into the physical world, you're like, oh, it's okay. I'll just go walk through or drive through all of that. Doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I mean, there are pockets. I mean, where I live is like a beautiful nature surrounded by pine trees. I mean, this is as close to heaven on earth as I can imagine. I mean, I used to live in LA, and that with the whatever, I don't want to get into it, but that was not the place for me. I needed freedom, sovereignty for both myself as well as just being able to commune with nature.
Yeah, I have, even though I don't live far from a town, I live with woods behind me and deer and animals, and I have a garden. And I don't think I could do it right now without that.
Right. Yeah, and that's another trick. You want to connect with your higher self, go out in nature. Be there. Nature has been around for thousands or millions of years. This is a place where you want to be. That's the future as well, not in a concrete jungle.
It definitely is, and I wish I could remember his name. I watch gardening shows from Great Britain, and this guy was some famous singer there, and he had this huge plant exhibit at, like a big plant fair. I guess it was one that the Queen had long ago made it hers, a Regency fair or something, but they were asking him to tell them about it, and it showed this beautiful garden he had built. And he said that he just started with a few plants, and he said one day I understood, and it completely changed me. He said, yeah, I'm a loud partying musician when I play. He said, but the rest of the time, he said, I come in the garden, and he said, I figured out that there's this song that's being played all over the planet. And it's loud in nature, and it's a song of harmony. And he said, so now he said, anytime I'm not playing, I'm in the garden or with my family looking for that song of harmony.
Right. That's good. And I would do the same thing when I was in LA. If I was feeling any discord and I wasn't feeling on top of things, I would go to the Lake Shrine, which is the self-realization fellowship that was started by Yogananda. And they have beautiful gardens with a big lake with swans on the lake and a windmill where the pictures of some of his masters, Sri Sri Yukteswar, Jesus, Babaji, I can't remember all of them. And you could go
I'm
there and
impressed
suddenly you're
with
in their energy.
I'm impressed with your pronunciation skills. That's great.
Well, I mean, I love them. I mean, they all, and I at one point they would close down the windmill for renovations. I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" So I went into the gift shop, and in the gift shop they had Yogananda's desk. So I moved a chair right over next to his desk and was sitting there meditating while everyone else is shopping. But I had the same benefit, communing with Yogananda, another, maybe he's not technically an ascended master, but he was very helpful to me to commune with his energy.
Certainly close enough, I would say.
Right. It's
You
like,
have an amazing list of books, and one of those is Autobiography of Yoga, which is Yogananda. Incredible book. But these things that
right,
we're talking about hearing things from other people, helping, seeing things, he experienced all of that and he documents it. And that's a completely different kind of country than what we're in right now.
right. Yeah. He would take it on faith that the God would show him what to do, and he'd be broke, poor, in a foreign city, and then he would get help. Someone would help him. So that just shows the value of faith and trusting in God and yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
Yogananda is another one of my favorites.
And then he had a teacher who I don't know if it was his sister or a friend, but she couldn't conceive. And he brought her in to see his teacher. And his teacher gave them like a date or something, and she conceived and had the baby at that time, which I
Right.
thought that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Well, that's ascended masters have a lot of abilities that may not make sense in the 3D physical world, but in the higher worlds are completely logical.
I'm just saying that so if someone thinks this is far-fetched, get some of the books that are listed in the back of his book and read them and see what you think.
Right. Well, that's one of the
But
great
I
ones.
think that's the higher sphere of what's going on, is that when more people are like that, we can say something like that. Okay, you can have a baby, or okay, you can have your money come in, or okay, you're no longer in pain. And I do
Right.
think that's a vibration or a frequency that's coming in now.
Right. Things are more and more possible, and things are happening faster and faster. So,
Right.
Still not happening as fast as I would like it, but
No.
the bigger picture is beyond what I can understand or any of us can understand with our conscious mind. So we have to be patient and let everything play out.
But I do think you're right. It is coming in faster, and there are more psychic or spiritual things that can happen now. It feels like there's a wider range of possibility.
Right. Yeah, everything seems to be possible now. I mean, even when you look at from a pure business standpoint, some of the biggest companies in the world, some of them are only a decade or so old. It doesn't take 100 years to build up a huge successful company.
Right.
So, I mean, it's possible. And then people say, well, I'm too old to do this or that. And then I remind them, well, Colonel Sanders, the guy behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken, the real life guy, he didn't start that franchise until he was 76 years old. So don't say, well, it's too late. I wish I had done it, 20 years ago. It's like, when should you plant a tree? Best time is 20 years ago. The next best time is right now.
Right.
So same thing, plan to invest in yourself, and the best time to do it is right now.
Yeah, and that colonel, if I remember correctly, for his entire life, he had not had much money, and then all of a sudden, just overnight, Colonel Sanders,
Right.
that's who it
Yep.
was. He just made it big time at 76 and lived a nice
Right.
long life too, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how long. I just remember he started at 76. That should inspire everyone.
I
I
know.
mean,
So we're getting close to the end, and I wondered if you would tell us about any upcoming activities you have, or share your
I may,
website, any other
yeah.
information.
Well, if you go to my website, mysticwarrior.us, there's actually like two websites that are fused together. Mystic Warrior is the more about me and my books. And then energycenterclearing.com is the one where I do the energy work. But they both can be reached using the same mysticwarrior.us URL. But you go there, you can read about what I do. Energy Center Clearing was the first MP3 that I made, or CD that I made, that cleared out your energy centers from a Western mystic perspective. That was the start, and that was kind of my flagship thing. But since then, I've gotten better and faster. So I have a number of other things. The higher self integration that you mentioned earlier is meant to connect you with your higher self. And that's a private session with me, which is very fast, 25 minutes, and I can do you and your entire family. It's very rare that it would take any longer than that. And then the other program that I have that's even the most popular one now is I do 30 days of remote healing. It's actually a month, whatever the month is, for every day during that month at 8 a.m. Pacific time, I clear everyone in the entire group. You just go about your normal activities, which, maybe if you're in California, it's 8 a.m. But if you're in New York, it's 11. If you're in London, it may be 3 in the afternoon. If you're in Asia, you may be sleeping. But either way, wherever you are, at least once a day, you're getting cleared of any negative emotions, negative thinking, and entities. So that's the most
basically,
popular thing.
it's an energy transmission that you can sign up for. So I want to thank you all for being here with us today. It's wonderful that you're here. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter on my website, onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com, and receive many tips about the energetic weather, practical tips about energy, and development on a spiritual level. We also will have classes soon, so let me know if you're interested and send an email to onetrueself@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin, to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you, to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.